The stars had never looked so close. Ambassador Hyun stood at the viewing window of the alien flagship, watching Earth rotate slowly in the distance. Behind him, the conference room hummed with translation devices and the soft breathing of beings who should not exist. Yet here they were, the Galactic Council. And they had come to Earth with open arms and closed fists. Hyun had been a diplomat for 20 years. He had negotiated trade deals, peace treaties, and border disputes across dozens of countries. Nothing had prepared him for this moment. The alien sitting across from him resembled a massive insect, its chitinous plates reflecting the harsh white lights of the ship. This was Vrel, the Council's primary representative, and his mandibles clicked in what the translator called amusement. "You must understand your position," Vrel said, his voice synthesized into perfect English. "We have done this 3,000 times. Every species we discover joins the Council. It is simply how things work." Hyun looked at the document on the table between them. The translation software had rendered it in simple terms, but the meaning was clear. Earth would surrender its military forces. The Council would place governors in every major nation. Humanity would provide 30% of all resources to the Council's collective stores. In exchange, the Council would protect Earth from hostile forces and integrate humanity into galactic civilization. "Protection from whom?" Hyun asked, keeping his voice level. Vrel's eyes, all 6 of them, fixed on him. "From us, Ambassador, and from others who are not so generous." The threat was not subtle. Hyun felt a cold weight settle in his stomach, but he had expected this. The intelligence division had predicted it. Humanity had been watching the Council's broadcasts for months since they first detected the massive fleet entering the solar system. Earth's scientists had worked day and night to understand the alien signals, to learn their language, to study their history. What they found was not encouraging. The Council was an empire dressed in diplomatic language. They conquered through bureaucracy instead of bombardment. They did not destroy civilizations. They absorbed them. The protected species became second-class citizens. Their resources extracted, their soldiers conscripted for Council wars. The arrangement benefited the Council enormously. It benefited the conquered very little. "How long do we have to consider?" Hyun asked. "1 of your years," Vrel replied. "This is standard procedure. We understand that new species need time to process contact." "We are not unreasonable," Hyun stood. The other members of the human delegation, 3 diplomats and 2 military advisors, rose with him. The aliens around the table shifted, surprised by the sudden movement. Hyun gathered the documents and handed them back to Vrel. "Thank you for your generous offer," Hyun said, and his smile was genuine, even if his words were not. "But our answer is no. We will take our chances on our own." The conference room fell silent. Vrel's mandibles stopped clicking. The other Council members? A mixture of species that resembled everything from crystalline structures to liquid pools seemed to freeze. The silence stretched for 10 seconds, then 20. Finally, Vrel spoke, and for the first time, the translator struggled to capture the emotion in his voice. "You are refusing?" "We are," Hyun confirmed. "No species refuses," Vrel said. "Not in 3,000 years. "Then we are the first," Hyun replied. "Earth will remain independent. We will defend ourselves. We will make our own way among the stars. We appreciate the offer, but we must decline." Vrel stood, his massive form towering over the human delegation. "You do not understand what you are doing. The galaxy is not safe. There are forces that would destroy your world without hesitation. You need our protection." "We have been at war with ourselves for 10,000 years, Hyun said quietly. "We have survived ice ages and plagues and asteroid impacts. We have split the atom and walked on our moon. We are not helpless, Counselor. We are not children who need a guardian. You're primitives who have barely left your own planet," Vrel snapped. And now the anger was clear, even through the translation. "We have crossed galaxies. We command forces that could turn your world to ash. You speak of survival, but you know nothing of the universe beyond your tiny system." Hyun met the alien's gaze without flinching. "Then teach us. Trade with us. Share knowledge with us as equals. But do not ask us to surrender our freedom. That is not something humans do willingly. You have 1 year, Vrel said. Return to your world. Speak to your leaders. When we come back, we expect a different answer. If you refuse again, there will be consequences. We understand, Hayan said. Our answer will not change. The human delegation left the conference room. As they walked through the corridors of the alien flagship toward their shuttle, the military advisor named Quan leaned close to Hyun and whispered, "Do you think they will attack?" "Not immediately," Hyun replied. "They are too surprised. We have disrupted their pattern. They need time to decide how to respond. And when they return in a year..." Haeon paused at the airlock and looked back at the massive ship around them. The technology was impressive, but it was not magic. These were machines built by living beings. Machines could be understood. Machines could be matched. "You have 1 year," Hayan said. "We will use it well." The shuttle departed from the flagship and began its journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Council fleet remained in orbit, 1,000 ships holding position above humanity's home. They were a reminder of power, of the forces aligned against Earth's decision. But they did not attack. Not yet. On Earth, the news of humanity's rejection spread across every nation within hours. Some celebrated. Some protested. Many were afraid. But the governments had made their choice, and the people, for the most part, stood behind it. Humanity would not kneel. Not to these aliens. Not to anyone. In the year that followed, Earth transformed. Every nation contributed to a unified defense initiative. Resources that had been spent on conflict between humans were redirected toward space defense. Orbital platforms were constructed in secret, hidden among the asteroids and on the far side of the moon. Scientists worked to understand the Council's technology from the scans taken during the meeting. Military strategists planned for scenarios ranging from blockade to invasion. And when the year ended, when the Council fleet returned expecting submission, they found something else entirely. They found a species that had spent 12 months preparing for war. They found humans who had looked at the stars and decided that freedom was worth fighting for. Ambassador Han's final words before leaving the flagship had been more than defiance. They had been a promise. Humans had been preparing for this possibility since the first telescope pointed skyward. They had always known something might be waiting out there. And they had decided long ago that when that moment came, they would face it standing tall. The Council had offered peace on their terms. Humanity had chosen to take their chances. Now both sides would discover what that choice truly meant. The year had passed faster than anyone expected. Earth had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible before first contact. The planet that had been divided by borders and ideologies now worked as one. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but well enough. Well enough to build what needed building. Well enough to prepare for what was coming. Ambassador Jiwon was younger than Hayan had been. Only 32 years old, but she had earned her position through brilliance rather than seniority. She had spent the past year coordinating intelligence operations across the solar system. Earth's new satellites tracked every Council ship movement. Human agents, digital and human both, had infiltrated Council communication networks. Giwon knew things about the Galactic Council that the Council did not know she knew. The Council fleet appeared exactly 1 year after their first visit, just as promised. But this time, they brought more ships. 2,000 vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were a wall of metal and energy, a demonstration of power meant to intimidate. The message was clear: accept our terms or face our strength. Counselor Thex led the delegation this time. He was the Council's master negotiator, famous across 800 worlds for his ability to turn defiant species into grateful subjects. He was reptilian in appearance, with scales that shifted colors based on his mood. When Jiwon met him in the same conference room where Haeon had stood a year ago, those scales were a confident blue. Ambassador Jiwon Dex said, his voice smooth and practiced, "I am pleased to meet you. I hope this discussion will be more productive than the last." "That depends on what you are offering," Jiwon replied, taking her seat across from him. Dex activated a holographic display. Numbers and charts appeared in the air between them. We have revised our proposal. The Council recognizes that humanity requires more autonomy than typical new members. We are willing to accommodate this. The new terms are generous. Juan studied the display. The tribute had been reduced to 15%. Humans could maintain local police forces. There would be fewer council governors, restricted to advisory roles. On the surface, it looked better than the first offer. You may keep your planetary governance, Dex continued. We will not interfere with your internal affairs. All we ask is that you join the Council's defense network and contribute to our collective security. Surely this is reasonable. Reasonable, Giwan repeated. She touched her tablet, and her own holographic display activated. Vix's scales flickered yellow, the first sign of uncertainty. These are Council military formations, Juan said, pointing to ship configurations that appeared in the projection. This is your supply chain structure. These are communication protocols used by your fleet commanders. This data was collected over the past year by Earth's monitoring systems. The scales went orange now. Concern, Giwan continued. We have also intercepted and translated approximately 40,000 hours of Council communications. We know about the rebellion in the Karvesh sector. We know about the resource depletion on protected worlds in the Outer Rim. We know that species under Council protection are conscripted at rates 5 times higher than Council core worlds. We know that 70% of casualties in the last Council war were from protected species, not from Council citizens. That information is classified, Vex said, his smooth voice developing an edge. It was G1 agreed. Now it is not. We have also shared it with 12 other independent species in the surrounding sectors. They found it very educational. Vix's scales shifted through several colors before settling on deep purple. Anger. You're making a grave mistake, Ambassador. The Council's protection is genuine. The galaxy contains threats you cannot imagine. Like the Council itself, Giwan asked. She displayed another set of files. These are recordings of Council fleet. Movements before first contact with 17 different species over the past century. In each case, the Council positioned warships near the target world before making their offer.
Ow.
In each case, the new species saw those ships and understood the implicit threat. This is not protection, Counselor. This is extortion with better branding. How dare you, Vex began, but Quan spoke over him. We dare because we must. Humanity has a saying. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It came to us with threats disguised as generosity. We will not pretend otherwise. Dex stood, his full height, impressive, even compared to the tall human ambassador. The Council does not negotiate with species who spy on us. You have violated protocols that have stood for millennia. We violated nothing, Juan said, remaining seated. We observed, we learned, and we prepared. These are not acts of war. These are acts of survival. You want survival? His voice rose. Then accept our protection. The forces beyond Council space will not be as patient as we are. Juan stood now, meeting his gaze. Then we will face those forces when they come. Until then, we have a counter-proposal. She displayed a document, this one written in Council standard, the bureaucratic language that governed their empire. The Council will withdraw from human space. You will leave us alone. In exchange, we will not interfere with Council affairs. We will establish a neutral zone between our territories. Both sides will benefit from peace. Vex laughed, a harsh sound that the translator struggled with. You think you can negotiate from a position of strength? You have one world? We have 800. And we have this, Juan said quietly. She pressed a final button on her tablet. The holographic display changed. It showed Earth's solar system. But now, hundreds of red dots appeared where only empty space had been visible. Each rep represented a weapons platform. They ringed the moon, orbited in the asteroid belt, hid among the ice of the outer planets. We spent the year building, Guan explained. Every dock, every factory, every resource was directed toward defense. We cannot match your fleet in open space, Counselor. We know this. But you cannot take our world without losses. That would be unacceptable. We have made our system into a fortress. They stared at the display. Scales cycled through colors too quickly to follow. The other council members in the room had gone silent. They were calculating. Jiwon could see it in their body language, in the way they communicated with each other through gestures and signals that humanity had learned to read. This is madness, Vex finally said. You have militarized your entire system in 1 year. The resources required, the coordination, the technology. We are very motivated, Jiwon interrupted. Humans have always excelled at 2 things, Counselor. We are exceptional at cooperation when threatened, and we are exceptional at war. The Council has destroyed civilizations for less than this, Vex warned. Then we will be the first civilization you fail to destroy, Jiwon replied. Your fleet is impressive. Your technology is advanced beyond ours. But you are far from home, and we are defending our world. History suggests that defenders have advantages that aggressors often underestimate. Vex looked at the Council fleet display. 2,000 ships, enough to conquer most species without serious resistance. Then he looked at the Human Defense Network. Not enough to win, perhaps, but enough to make victory costly, very costly. The Council will not forget this, Vex said. We do not want you to forget, Jiwon answered. We want you to remember that humanity chose freedom over safety. We want you to remember that we said no twice. And we want you to understand that we will keep saying no, no matter how many times you ask. The meeting ended badly. Vex and his delegation departed without another word. The Council fleet held position for 3 days, weapons powered but not firing. Human defense platforms targeted every ship, ready but not aggressive. It was a standoff, the kind that could explode into violence with one wrong move. But the Council blinked first. Their fleet withdrew, jumping back into faster-than-light travel and disappearing from human sensors. They left behind only silence and uncertainty. On Earth, people celebrated. They had faced down an empire and survived. But Jiwon did not celebrate. She stood in the command center watching the empty space where the fleet had been, and she knew this was not over. The Council would return. They always did. The only question was when, and with what new offer. Humanity had bought time. Now they needed to use it. Galaxy was vast, and humans were still new to it. But they had proven something important. They had proven they could stand alone. Whether they could remain standing was another question entirely. 5 years changed everything and nothing. Earth had grown beyond its single star system. 3 neighboring systems now flew human flags. Their asteroid fields mined, their planets surveyed, their space stations bustling with activity. Humanity had become something more than a planetary species. It had become a small but growing interstellar civilization. The Galactic Council watched this expansion with growing unease. Other species took notice too. If humans could defy the Council and thrive, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Questions were being asked in protected worlds and subject territories. Questions that the Council did not want asked. Ambassador Minho received the message on a Tuesday morning. Earth Standard Time. It came through official channels, formal and polite. Supreme Counselor Drin, ruler of 847 worlds, requested a meeting. Not demanded, requested. That alone was significant. Drin arrived without a fleet. His ship was civilian, a diplomatic vessel marked with peace symbols that humans had learned to recognize. It docked at New Hope Station, humanity's largest orbital platform, and Drin emerged with only a small security detail. He was tall, humanoid enough to be relatable, but alien enough to be striking. His skin held a faint luminescence, and his eyes were entirely black. Ambassador Minho, Drin said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. They met in a conference room that overlooked Earth. Minho had chosen this location deliberately. Let Drin see what he was trying to control. Let him understand what humanity was protecting. Your rise has been remarkable, Drin began, his voice measured and respectful. 5 years ago, you had barely left your homeworld. Now you have expanded to 3 systems. You have established mining operations, built trade routes, developed new technologies. The Council has been impressed. Impressed enough to leave us alone, Minho asked. Drin smiled, a practiced expression that looked almost natural, impressed enough to make a genuine offer. Not the terms we gave you before. Those were mistakes, I admit freely. We approached you as we approach all new species, with assumptions that proved incorrect. Humans are different. We understand that now. He activated a holographic display. The terms appeared in the air, clean and clear. Minho read them carefully, taking his time. The offer was genuinely generous by galactic standards. Earth would join the Council as an autonomous member state. Humanity could keep its military, its government, its independence. The only requirement was 5% resource sharing and participation in Council trade networks. You would gain access to Council technology, Drin explained. Medical advances that could extend human lifespans by centuries. Energy systems that would end your dependence on primitive fusion. Defensive shields that would make your worlds nearly invulnerable. All of this shared freely. In exchange for what, really? Minho asked. In exchange for being part of something larger than yourselves, Drin replied. He changed the display. Now it showed a star map, vast and complex. The galaxy is dangerous, Ambassador. There are forces beyond Council space that you have T encountered. The Devourers' machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. The Collective, a hive mind that absorbs species into its consciousness. The Reavers, pirates and raiders who prey on isolated civilizations. The display showed footage, and Minho watched in silence. A planet stripped to bedrock by machines. A fleet assimilated by something that moved like liquid metal. A colony burning under weapons fire. The images were horrifying, and they were real. The Council exists for a reason, Drin said quietly. We unite species, because united, we survive. Divided, we fall to forces that do not negotiate, do not compromise, do not show mercy. This is not about control, Ambassador. It is about survival. Minho stood and walked to the window. Earth turned slowly below, blue and green and beautiful. He had been born on that world. He had watched it transform from divided nations into a unified species. He knew what humans were capable of when threatened. But he also knew what they were capable of when united by choice rather than fear. Your offer is generous, Minho said. I believe you are sincere. I believe the threats you describe are real. But I must ask you a question, Supreme Counselor. If your goals are truly unity and survival, why did you begin with threats? Why did you position warships above our world before making your first offer? Drin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something that might have been regret. Because it always worked before. For 3,000 years, every species we encountered accepted our terms. Some with gratitude, some with fear, but all of them accepted. We had no reason to believe humans would be different. But we are different, Minho said. We have a long history of resisting control. We have fought empires before, on our own world. We have learned that freedom, once surrendered, is rarely returned. Trust, once broken, cannot be mandated by treaty. You are saying no again, Drin observed. I'm saying that your offer, generous as it is, comes too late. You threatened us first. You positioned it as protection we needed rather than partnership we might choose. The psychology does not work, Counselor. Humans do not respond well to those who first threaten them and then offer friendship. Minho turned from the window and faced Drin directly. But I am not saying we cannot work together. We are open to alliances against mutual threats. If the Devourers attack, we will fight beside you. If the Collective threatens both our territories, we will coordinate our defenses. But as equal partners, not as members and protectors. No species stands outside the Council, Drin said, and for the first time, his composure cracked. If we allow humans to remain independent, while benefiting from Council cooperation, every other species will demand the same. Our entire structure will collapse. And perhaps your structure needs to collapse, Minho replied gently. Perhaps the galaxy is ready for something different. A federation of equals, rather than an empire of subjects. Drin closed the holographic display. He looked tired, suddenly, as if the weight of 800 worlds pressed on his shoulders. I cannot accept your proposal. The Council will not permit it. We will revisit this discussion in the future, Ambassador. I hope that when we do, you will have reconsidered. And I hope that when you return, you will have new terms to offer, Minho said. Terms built on respect rather than necessity. Partnership rather than membership. Drin departed that day, his civilian vessel leaving human space without incident. No threats were made. No fleets appeared. But both sides understood that this was not an ending. It was an intermission. In the years that followed, humanity continued to expand. They made contact with species beyond Council control. Small civilizations that had avoided detection or were too far from Council space to matter. Trade agreements were signed. Defense pacts were negotiated. Slowly, carefully, humans were building something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time. An alternative to the Council. And the Council watched, uncertain how to respond. They could not allow humanity to succeed in creating a rival power structure. But they could not easily destroy a species that had become stronger with each passing year. The humans had grown from 1 world to 12 systems. Their technology had advanced. Their alliances had multiplied. Minch submitted his report to Earth's Security Council. Summarizing the meeting with Drin, his conclusion was simple. The Council would return. Eventually, with another offer or another threat, humanity needed to be ready for both. They needed to be strong enough that war was unthinkable, but flexible enough that peace remained possible. The irony was not lost on Minho humans. So recently divided among themselves, now stood as an example of unity to other species. They had become what the Council claimed to be, a force for cooperation and collective security. The difference was that humans offered this freely, without coercion. Whether that difference would matter in the end remained to be seen. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was still small, but they had proven they could say no and survive. Now, they needed to prove they could say yes, on their own terms, and build something worth protecting. Earth turned below, unchanged and eternal. But the humans who lived on it had changed forever. They were no longer a species looking up at the stars with wonder. They were a species that had reached the stars and decided to make them home. It's on their own terms, in their own way. The Council would return. Of that, Minho was certain. But when they did, they would find humanity stronger, more connected, and more determined than ever. 15 years had passed since first contact, and the galaxy had learned to speak a new word, human. It was spoken with curiosity in some sectors, with fear in others, and with hope in places where the Council's control had grown too heavy. Humanity had become more than a curiosity. They had become a problem. 12 systems now answered to Earth's unified government. Mining operations, agricultural worlds, research stations, and trade hubs formed a network of human activity that spanned 30 light-years. More importantly, humanity had done something the Council thought impossible. They had convinced 6 other species to remain independent. Forming a loose alliance of civilizations that rejected Council membership, the Council could not ignore this any longer. Their authority, unchallenged for millennia, was being questioned. Subject species were asking dangerous questions. If humans could thrive outside the Council, why couldn't they? If 6 other species had joined them, why not 60? General Soman stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's first dreadnought-class warship. She was 50 years old, a veteran of the defense buildup that had followed first contact. She had spent 15 years preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come. Knowing it inevitably would, the Council fleet emerged from faster than light. Travel in a formation that was meant to terrify. 2,000 warships, arrayed in perfect geometric patterns. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had built. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could absorb nuclear detonations. They were a demonstration of power that should have made resistance unthinkable. Counselor Vex led this delegation. He was an amphibian species, his skin slick and mottled, his eyes cold and calculating. He had earned his position through successful military campaigns against 7 rebellious sectors. He was not a diplomat. He was a conqueror who used words before weapons. General Soman Vex said when they met via holographic communication. The Council had not requested a physical meeting this time. I will be brief. The Galactic Council has exhausted its patience with humanity. You will join the Council immediately, or you will be classified as hostile entities. You have 24 hours to comply. Solomon studied the hologram. Vex's body language suggested confidence, but she had learned to read aliens over the years. There was tension in his posture, uncertainty in his eyes. The Council was not as confident as they wanted to appear. Counselor Vex Soman replied, her voice flat and military precise. I am transmitting tactical data to your command ship. I suggest you review it before making any decisions. The data package was comprehensive. It showed Council fleet formations from 17 angles. It identified command ships, supply vessels, and communication hubs. It outlined 17 critical vulnerabilities in their positioning. Most importantly, it demonstrated that humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing. Vex's expression changed as he reviewed the data. The confidence faded. The uncertainty grew. You've been monitoring our fleet movements, he said. We've been monitoring everything, Solomon confirmed. Your supply chains are vulnerable. Your communication protocols are predictable. Your fleet doctrine favors overwhelming force against weaker opponents. But you have little experience with enemies who can hurt you back. We have studied every Council military engagement for the past 50 years. We know how you fight. You think you can win a war against the Council? Vex asked, and now there was anger in his voice. You have 12 systems. We have 800. Your technology is inferior. Your fleet is smaller. Your resources are limited. You would be destroyed within months. Probably Solomon agreed, but not easily, and not cheaply. She transmitted another data package. This one contained simulations, war games run by human military computers using all available intelligence on Council capabilities. The projections were grim. Humanity would O's, but the cost to the Council would be devastating. Your fleet would take 70% casualties conquering our 12 systems, Solomon explained. Your supply lines would be raided by our fast attack ships. Your occupation forces would face guerrilla warfare on every world. We have prepared every planet for defense in depth. You would win eventually, but you would lose more ships than you lost in your last major war. That is the price of defiance, Vex said. But his voice lacked conviction. That is the price of victory, Solomon corrected. And you would pay it to conquer 12 systems that would resist you forever. Meanwhile, 6 other independent species would see the cost of resistance and might decide it is worth paying. How many wars of conquest can the Council afford, Counselor? Vex was silent. Solomon continued. We do not want this war. We have never wanted war, but humans are very good at it. 2,000 years of continuous conflict on our homeworld taught us that defenders who fight for freedom, fight harder than conscript armies, fight for conquest. Your soldiers serve because they must. Ours will fight because they choose to. You are bluffing, Vex said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. I am not, Solomon replied. I am offering you an alternative, a non-aggression pact. The Council leaves human space alone. We stay out of Council territory. Both civilizations coexist without conflict. You avoid a costly war. We avoid subjugation. Everyone benefits. The Council does not negotiate with threats, Vex declared. Then you are speaking to the wrong person, Solomon said. I am not a diplomat, Counselor. I am a military commander. I do not make threats. I make tactical assessments. And my assessment is that attacking us would be a mistake that costs you more than you can afford. Vex terminated the communication without responding. The Council fleet held position, silent and still. Hours passed. Solomon waited on the bridge, watching sensors, monitoring the fleet's posture. Human ships took up defensive formations. Weapons were powered. Crews were ready. Then humanity played its final card. Jump gates activated across the sector. Not human gates. Something else. Something new. Weapons platforms emerged from faster-than-light travel, appearing in uninhabited systems that ringed Council territory. Hundreds of them, placed over months of secret operations. Each one was autonomous, armed, and capable of devastating raids on Council supply lines. The message was clear. Humanity had not just fortified their own systems. They had extended their reach into the space around Council borders. Any war would not be fought in human territory alone. It would be fought across the entire sector. Vex received this information from his scouts and fleet sensors. Solomon watched his command ship on long-range scans, imagining the calculations happening aboard it. The cost-benefit analysis. The risk assessment. The political consequences of a failed invasion. The Council fleet began to move. But they were not attacking. They were retreating, pulling back, reforming, withdrawing to a safe distance. Vex transmitted one final message. "This is not over." "It never is," Solomon replied. The fleet jumped away, disappearing into faster-than-light travel. The sector fell silent. On human worlds, people celebrated. On the bridge of the Defiance, Solomon allowed herself a moment of relief before returning to work. They had won again. They had defied the Council again. But the cost of those victories was growing. Earth's Security Council convened an emergency session. The question before them was simple and terrifying. What happens when the Council decides that humanity cannot be allowed to exist? When defiance becomes unacceptable? When the example humans set becomes too dangerous to tolerate? Solomon provided her assessment. Humanity needed allies. Real ones, not just loose associations. They needed a military coalition capable of matching Council power. They needed to transform from a regional nuisance into a genuine alternative to Council authority. The decision was made. Humanity would reach out to every independent species, every rebel world, every civilization that had rejected or fled Council control. They would offer something the Council never had: genuine partnership, equal voices, shared defense without forced submission. It was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. But humans had built their civilization on ambitious goals. They had walked on their moon before they understood the physics. They had split the atom before they understood the consequences. They had united their world when everyone said it was impossible. Now they would attempt something even more audacious. They would build an alliance capable of standing against an empire that had ruled unchallenged for 3,000 years. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not through fear, but through choice. The Council would return. Solomon was certain of it. But when they did, they would face not just humanity, but humanity's allies. A federation of free species, united by choice, defending their freedom together. It was a dream worth fighting for. Whether it was a dream they could achieve remained to be seen. 20-5 years after first contact, the galaxy burned. The Devourers had returned from the dark spaces between galactic arms, and they came hungry. Entire star systems went silent, their suns dimmed, their planets stripped to cores. The machine intelligence that had been dormant for centuries was awake again, and nothing seemed capable of stopping it. The Council lost 30 systems in the first month. Their fleets, so impressive against organic civilizations, were inadequate against an enemy that did not fear death and learned from every encounter. Desperate calls for reinforcements echoed across Council space. Protected species sent their soldiers to die defending worlds they had never seen. The casualties were catastrophic. In human space, Ambassador Yuna watched the reports with cold clarity. She was the youngest ambassador humanity had ever appointed. Only 38 years old, but the past decade had aged her beyond her years. She had spent that time building something unprecedented, a coalition of 37 independent species, united not by force, but by choice. The coalition, as it was simply called, controlled 73 systems. It was not as vast as the Council's empire, but it was growing. More importantly, it was stable. Member species contributed according to their abilities. Decisions were made collectively. No species dominated. It was messy and sometimes inefficient, but it was genuine. When Ambassador Talon's message arrived, Yuna was not surprised. She had been expecting it. The Council had exhausted their military options. Now, they needed help, and there was only one place to turn. Talon arrived alone, without even a security detail. His species resembled tall, thin humans with skin that shifted between gray and blue. He had been a junior diplomat during the first contact with humanity. Now he was the Council's last hope. They met in the Coalition capital, station built from contributions by all member species. The meeting room overlooked a binary star system, beautiful and strange. Talon took in the sight, and Una saw recognition in his eyes. This was what cooperation could build. This was what the Council could have been. Ambassador Una Talon began, and his voice carried exhaustion. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I will not waste your time with pleasantries. The Council needs help. The Devourers are destroying us. In 3 months, we have lost more ships than in the last century of conflicts. If this continues, Council space will be consumed within a year. I am sorry to hear that, Una said, and she meant it. She took no pleasure in the Council's suffering. But I am unclear why you have come to us. The Council has 800 worlds and resources beyond measure. Surely you have the strength to mount a defense. We have strength, but it is the wrong kind, Talon admitted. Our military is designed to control, not to fight peers. We have conquered countless species, but we have not faced a true existential threat in millennia. The Devourers are beyond our experience. They adapt to our tactics. They consume our technology and use it against us. We are losing. He activated a holographic display. Star maps showed the progression of the Devourer advance. Red zones spread like infection across Council territory. Projected losses were staggering. We are prepared to offer humanity what you have always wanted, Talon said. Recognition of your independence. Formal acknowledgement of your sovereignty. A mutual defense treaty as equals. In exchange, we ask for your military assistance against the Devourers. Una studied the projection in silence. She had spent 15 years working toward this moment. The Council, finally offering genuine partnership instead of subjugation. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like tragedy. Your offer's generous, Una said carefully. But it comes too late. Talon's skin shifted to deep blue, confusion and concern. Too lot. The offer stands. We are prepared to sign immediately. I am sure you are, Una replied. But humanity does not need Council recognition anymore. We have built something better. She changed the holographic display. Now it showed the Coalition, 37 species, 73 systems, hundreds of stations and settlements. Trade routes, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. A functioning interstellar civilization built on principles the Council had abandoned millennia ago. We have allies, Counselor? True allies, not subjects. We have built a federation of equals. When the Devourers attacked Council space, they also probed Coalition territory. We fought them off together, 37 species coordinating their defenses. We suffered losses, but we held. Because when people fight for something they chose, rather than something forced upon them, they fight harder. Then you will not help us, Talon said, and his voice carried defeat. I did not say that, Una corrected. I said your offer comes too late. But we will help anyway. Not because of any treaty with the Council, not because you recognized our sovereignty. We will help because the Devourers are a threat to all organic life, and allowing them to consume Council space means they will eventually reach ours. Talon's skin shifted again, this time to something Una had not seen before. A mixture of colors that suggested hope and confusion. You will fight beside us? We will fight for the galaxy, Una said. Coalition forces will deploy to defend worlds under Devourer attack. We will share our tactical data. We will coordinate our fleets. But we do this as independent allies, not as Council subjects. The Council will accept any help, Talon said quickly. What are your terms? That is where this becomes difficult, Una replied. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the binary stars. Our terms are simple, but fundamental. When this war is over, when the Devourers are defeated or driven back, the Council must dissolve its tributary system. Every species currently under Council protection must be offered genuine independence. Those who choose to remain with the Council must do so freely, with full representation and equal rights. The silence that followed was profound. Talon's skin cycled through so many colors that Yuna could not interpret them all. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "You're asking the Council to give up everything. Our entire structure, our power, our authority. You are asking us to become something completely different." "I am asking you to become what you always claimed to be," Yuna said, turning to face him. "A union of species working together for mutual benefit. The only difference is that now it will be true instead of propaganda." "The Council will never agree to this," Talon said. "Then the Council will face the Devourers alone," Yuna replied, her voice hard. "And when you fall, when your 800 worlds are consumed, the Coalition will fight on. We will defend what we have built. We will prove that freedom and cooperation are stronger than control and subjugation." "You would let billions die to make a political point?" Talon asked, and now there was anger in his voice. Yuna said firmly, "We will let billions live because we offered you a way forward. You kept offering us peace on your terms. We kept saying no because we wanted peace on equal terms. Now we are strong enough to offer you peace on our terms. I suggest you take it." Talon stood and paced the room, his skin shifting constantly. Yuna watched him struggle with the impossible choice. Accept terms that would dismantle the Council's power structure or face extinction alone. "I need to consult with the High Council," Talon finally said. "Of course," Yuna agreed. "But decide quickly. The Devourers do not wait." Talon departed, and Yuna was left alone with the binary stars. She knew she had gambled everything. If the Council refused, if they chose pride over survival, the galaxy would burn. But she also knew that sometimes the only way to force change was to make the alternative unthinkable. The Coalition military began deploying even before the Council's answer came. Yuna had not lied. They would fight the Devourers regardless of Council cooperation. 37 species, united by choice, moved to defend not just their own territory, but the galaxy itself. Human ships, marked with Earth's blue and green, jumped into battle zones across the warfront. They fought beside Council forces, coordinating attacks, sharing intelligence, taking losses. The Coalition fought not as conquerors or subjects, but as free species choosing to defend their galaxy. And slowly, the Council began to understand. They watched Coalition forces fight with a determination that conscript armies could not match. They saw species working together without coercion. They witnessed what genuine cooperation could achieve. 3 weeks after Talon's visit, the Council's answer came. They accepted the terms. Not happily, not easily, but they accepted. When the war ended, they would restructure. They would offer genuine independence. They would become a true federation instead of an empire. Yuna received the message and allowed herself a moment of relief. Humanity had rejected every peace offer the Council made because none of them offered genuine peace. Now, finally, real peace was possible. Not peace through dominance, but peace through mutual respect. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council's 3,000-year empire was ending. It's transformed into something that served its members instead of ruling them. It had taken humanity 25 years of defiance. But they had achieved something that seemed impossible. They had changed the galaxy not through conquest, but through example. They had proven that freedom was worth defending, that cooperation was stronger than coercion, and that saying no to injustice was the first step toward genuine peace. The Devourers would be defeated. The cost would be high, but humanity and its allies would pay it willingly. Because they were fighting not for territory or resources, but for a principle that all species deserve to choose their own destiny. And as the Coalition fleets jumped into battle, as humans fought beside aliens they had met only years before, Yuna understood what humanity had truly accomplished. They had not just survived first contact. They had transformed it into an opportunity to remake the galaxy into something better. The stars looked different now. Not threatening or promising, but simply there. Waiting for species brave enough to reach them, wise enough to share them, and strong enough to defend them together.